Welcome back to the Louis Selling YouTube channel. Back again, finally, on a midweek fixture podcast. It is season 2, episode 5. It has been a while. That is because the dreaded winter flu got one of us more than the other. But we're good. We are back again. And in this one, we're going to be talking about Premier League strikers. Everyone's favourite position, everyone's favourite type of player to talk about. So sit back, relax, and welcome back to Midweek Fixture. How are you today, Annabel?
Yeah, no, I'm well. I was ill, as you say, in January time. It was horrible. The flu got me for about 3 weeks. So yeah, your monthly podcast has kind of been put on delay. But hopefully this one sort of makes up for it. Because as you say, it's really exciting to talk about the strikers and sort of the patterns we're seeing and the impacts they're having across the league. Because there are some players, I think, who I wouldn't predict to be in sort of this top list of strikers. But they're there and very much making the difference. So no, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the freak of nature at the top of the list. Erling Haaland on 22 goals. The best striker in terms of being a striker in the Premier League. I mean, you can't really argue that.
No.
But when you look at the other goals in the list, I think a lot of other players have done very, very well. And as I said to you before, it's really hard to compare to Haaland because he's just a different level to everyone else, which makes the 4th, 5th, 6th look not that great. But realistically, when you've got a 33-year-old, 34-year-old, 35-year-old scoring double figures, that's quite impressive.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. When we're going to talk about, the likes of Danny Welbeck, it's definitely impressive to see that they're on that list. And I think when you're comparing to Haaland, it's impressive that the likes of Igor Thiago, who we'll come on to, are even close to Erling Haaland, because he is just, as you say, that sort of freak of nature, and the amount of opportunities he gets as well. Scarily, he could probably score more. But yeah, with the service he gets and sort of the way that he has so many different ways that he can finish, how audacious he is sometimes with some of them. I think you can't really compare, as you say, him to other players. But yeah, he's obviously had a bit of a goal drought as well. So as I say, he could always score more, and that's a bit of a scary prospect, I think, in the run-in is, and we've got an injury potentially Erling has at the moment, but that scary prospect is if he does start to hit form when he comes back. He's just someone who needs to pick up the ground running, and I'm sure he'll do that at some point as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in terms of his stats, 22 goals in 28 games, which is pretty poor for Haaland.
Yeah.
0.88 goals per 90 is absolutely fantastic. And then a 23% shot conversion rate or goal conversion rate and 102 minutes per goal. That is by far the best on this list. Second is 132 minutes per goal, so nearly half a game of football between them. But as a City fan, obviously you watch him every week. Everyone knows Haaland, but give me a quick summary in terms of his profile, his style of play that we can kind of use to compare the rest of this list.
I think he's got blistering pace, which is something we don't actually get to see often. It's just how powerful he is, how he can shrug off defenders, and when you sort of get him in those one-on-one situations with an early ball, which you don't actually see City typically play. I know we've talked about this counter-attacking style, which could really favour Haaland, and we've seen in glimpses against Arsenal at the Emirates, and then when we played United at the Etihad, I remember being there in person for that one, and just how impressive it was that he could bear down on goal, and he's just got this incredible pace about him that he can get ahead of the likes of Gabriel and then slot it into the net so calmly. So no, if we're talking about his attributes, he's got composure, strength, speed, and just every single attribute really. He can score with both feet and also his head as well. So I think whenever he's in and around that box, which is where he definitely likes to lurk and scores most of his goals, he is just really a poacher. And I know we haven't really seen an audacious finish from him recently, but you go back to the likes of the goals that he scored against Dortmund, and yeah, he can do all sorts of acrobatic finishes. So I don't think you're ever really safe from him, but I think if we're talking about his attributes and sort of his weaknesses to that, it definitely is if you put a physical sort of centre-back against him, someone who's got the same sort of stature and strength. He can sometimes get sort of marked out of games, I feel, or, he engages in these physical tussles and sort of gets distracted from scoring. So I think that's something we've seen have kind of stopped him scoring as much as he could, really. Because, if you keep tight to him and you frustrate him, he's always going to be held, right? We see this a lot as City fans. There's a frustration that, yeah, the one way to really stop Erling, which we see a lot, is players getting tight to him and sort of winning those aerial duels and just not giving him a moment to breathe. But yeah, he hasn't scored since the 11th of February, so it doesn't seem like too long. I mean, we're only in the 1st or 2nd of March, sorry, it is today. But in that sort of terms for him and how many games City play, that is actually quite a big time not to score. But yeah, I certainly think that kind of plays a part as those physical duels that he's engaged in recently have kind of stopped him being his best and perhaps being that sort of focal point on his own. He sometimes just struggles to receive the ball in the box.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the target man, I want to say old fashioned because it's still been around, but definitely something that was more prominent in the early 2000s, 90s. That big target man up front, that proper number 9. I kind of think Haaland has embraced that a little bit. It has been a revival with Igor Thiago, Chris Wood last season. 7 assists. He's definitely playing into that, receiving the ball, knocking it off. I mean, one of the assists was absolutely outrageous, that cross for Nico O'Reilly. But
yeah,
Haaland himself is showing this revival of that role, which is great to see because everyone wants goals. So this is a role that's going to get goals at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I was going to say about that actually, how he's kind of developed his game, because when he's not scoring, as you say, he's also got a several amount of assists, which is actually quite impressive because, you know, you're always going to base a striker off how many goals they score. But actually, if he can contribute and sort of be played out of the game, it then allows space for others. And I think Erling said recently on an interview, he always makes those runs. Most of the time, he doesn't get the ball, which is a little bit frustrating how we sort of do pass it around more than like to go forward at times. But it does at least, he says, stretch the forward line, sort of stretch the defenders out, and then there's more room in between the lines for the likes of Phil Foden or Ryan Cherky or, as we say, O'Reilly now, who's excelling in the 10. So, no, I think he definitely helps in that way. If he's not scoring, at least he's giving more space for these other players. And as you mentioned there, his layoff play is great. He's really developed that sort of ability to link play, which I know, who was it who criticised him? Roy Keane said that he was like a League Two player. He's certainly proving that sort of hyperbolic statement wrong because he's now actually someone who can do a good pass. And as you say, that assist for O'Reilly was pinpoint for his header. So, no, it's exciting to see that he's kind of developing, and also even his defensive like style of the game. I think that's great to see that even as a striker, he's not too pretentious to not want to get involved in defending. He almost thrives off of helping us defensively. When a corner comes in, he's the first player, you know, at the near post to head it away. So no, I think he's been integral even if he's not scoring. But obviously, we hope his injury isn't too long, and then he comes back and starts doing what he knows how to do best.
Yeah, for sure. The next man on this list, the only one that could maybe overtake Haaland for that golden boot, depends how long his injury is, but it is Igor Thiago for Brentford. Has been an absolute revelation this season. In my opinion, probably the best striker this season if you take it in isolation, just because the team that he's playing in, everyone predicted to go down. He's carried them in quite a lot of games. 18 goals, 1 assist, 28 played, 0.68 goals per 90, 132 minutes per goal, and a 27% goal conversion rate. So slightly better than Haaland, which is interesting. One thing, 6 penalties, so you can't. Yes, he has to score them, but scoring 6 penalties is quite a lot on this list. Not saying that discredits him at all, but 6 penalties is definitely something to look at.
Yeah,
For
no, it
sure.
certainly makes him versatile. I think it's like a positive because, you know, you want a striker who can finish them. And I know Erling, if we're going back to him and sort of his incredible stats, he still sometimes misses penalties. So I think it's good that whenever I see Igor Thiago step up, I mostly think he's going to score them. So that's just another, I guess, string to his bow. But as you say, he's more than that. Like the goals that he's scoring does show he has more abilities than just his penalties. Like, you know, he's an intelligent player moving across the box. And I think he's just strong as well. Like his hold up play, whenever I watch him, I think he's just hard to kind of contain, and we've definitely seen that this season. I think he's excelled or improved upon last season. I believe he scored like 14, I think it was, last season. So he had quite a prolific season then, and then he's sort of grown into his own even more. And I know he's quite composed as well, 1v1, which is something we see in Erling. So again, these sort of players who will look up to him and in their own right want to be as prolific. I think he's really good at that. I think it was against Brighton I saw he scored a 1v1. You might remember it better than me, but he like got through on goal and was quite composed with his finish. So yeah, no, I think in general he's just been really impressive, and he's someone who you can kind of maybe rely on, as you say, more than Erling, because perhaps I don't know if Brentford get less chances, but in terms of if you're talking about his ratio of conversion rate being higher than Erling's. That is probably because when he gets a chance, he knows he's got to take it, and we can rely on him. So, yeah, you'd almost back him more. If we're talking about FPL terms, which is obviously quite popular, you'd probably favour having him in your team at the moment over someone like Erling, who, yeah, you just don't know if he's actually going to get it back into his goal-scoring form. But as you say, it's definitely been impressive what he's managed to do, considering so many players at Brentford lost. As you say, a lot of people thought they'd go down. I can't remember where we predicted them. I think I said like 17th or something, or 13th, something like that. But either one, is a lot lower than they are now. They're 7th, which is better off than they finished last season as well. And they've lost so many, integral players, Brian Mbuemo, Mark Flecken, obviously, the goalkeeper. But, it's still these types of players. Johan Visa, of course, went to Newcastle. So, no, I'm really impressed by what Igor Thiago's managed to do this season.
Yeah, for sure. You said you think he scored 14 last season.
Yeah, I thought I read something somewhere.
That is incorrect. He has been
How
the
many did he
biggest
score
surprise
last
this season because he didn't score last season.
Wow. I must have read something wrong, but I heard he was prolific one of the campaigns, and then he sort of regained that form now.
Well,
but that might be entirely wrong.
He joined Brentford in the 24-25 season. Prior to that, in 23-24, playing for Club Brugge, he scored 29.
Okay, it might have been something like that.
And then he joined Brentford in 24-25 and immediately picked up a meniscus injury, which put him out for pretty much the whole season. He played 8 games. So he got a meniscus, then played 4 games, then got a knee injury, and then played the last 4 games of the season. Everyone thought they've lost Ivan Toney. He's probably not going to do that in terms of what Ivan Toney did, but he's been absolutely fantastic. 18 goals this season, held the ball up really, really well. 1 assist is interesting. I thought he'd have more than that, but he's got surprising pace. He's very, very strong. Does tuck the penalties away. I think he's been fantastic. Biggest surprise of the season is probably fair. Has to be in the conversation for player of the season. As you say, Brentford have lost Mbuemo, Wisa, so they haven't got their services anymore and their ability to put the ball in the box. Sade has been good in my opinion. Dango Ouattara has been good as well, but this man has been leading the line, and rightly so. He's in line potentially to get a Brazil call-up for the World Cup.
Yeah, no, that would be brilliant. As you say, I was wrong. If he had that injury last season, I did read a piece about it and how devastated he was, and sort of now telling the Brentford fans to keep faith and sort of see what he can do. But no, he definitely is a surprise now that you've said he was injured last year, because it's kind of an unknown of what he could do at Brentford, and then losing all of those sorts of players, he definitely warrants that Brazil call-up because of what he's managed to do. So, no, it'll be really exciting for him, and hopefully he does get that. We'll have to keep an eye on him and how he does for the national team, because I don't know how often he's managed to be there, but obviously everyone wants to represent their country.
I'm not sure if he's actually had a national call-up, to be fair.
Call-up before? No.
I don't think he has.
We'll fact check it.
I will fact check. No, it doesn't say that he has. I do not think he has, which makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, and special, bless him. So, no, it's exciting times, I think, for him and for Brentford, to be honest, because can they get Europe? I mean, they're well within those spots at the moment. Yeah,
they are slightly dropping off a little bit, but I think they can just about get it. They're on 43 points. They've got a little 3-point buffer in there, but it is very, very tight. So we shall see. As for Thiago, I think he has a bit more to work on for his overall play. He's had a bit of criticism from Brentford fans for a few things, which is fair enough. But his overall game is being that traditional number 9, a big man up front. There's going to be a bully, get the ball, batter through people, and then tuck it away, which he has done perfectly this season. So, fair play to him. Definitely in the conversation for player of the season.
Yeah. But the next man we talk about might have a word to say about that, actually.
Yeah, the next player is a striker, but not a striker. I'm having him in here because he is third, and he has played striker at the start of his career. Has done for City 1 or 2 times. Has done for Bournemouth a few times. Perhaps surprising that he is this high up the list for some people. That is Antoine Semenyo with 14 goals, 4 assists, 27 games played, 0.52 goals per 90, 173 minutes per goal, and a goal conversion percentage of 22%, which for a player that is predominantly a winger is absolutely fantastic. And arguably, he has won City loads of points already with his performances and goals in just a few months.
Yeah, no, he's been massive for us immediately. And as you say, I think he is a contender for player of the season because of what he's done at Bournemouth and then immediately making that impact on a higher level, you'd say, in these big games now. And yeah, he's made a massive impact for us. I remember he scored against Newcastle in that League Cup first leg. He's just been integral in so many big games. Obviously, FA Cup as well. I think that really helped just to settle him in when he scored against Exeter. So no, he's just come in and really hit the ground running. I think he's been quite a breath of fresh air for City fans because he's someone who claimed he was clinical in his first interview at the club and then has kind of proven to be that. Still not, as entirely clinical as he could be. He's got plenty of years to improve at City, but when he does get a chance, he's at least going to put one of them away and sort of, I just think, yeah, as I say, he's been a breath of fresh air with Doku injured, for example, a winger who's been so good, I think, at supplying ours and taking on players and just being a bit more decisive in that final third. Yeah, we've missed Doku, but Semenyo has come in and been a great addition to the side. A different player as well, he's just I'd say pure strength, but he also takes on players very well. And yeah, he's just been supplying assists. I mean, he's got, I think it was 2 assists for us so far and 6 goals, and that's only in 11 appearances. So 8 goal contributions is never bad. And as you say, they're actually quite like game-defining moments as well that he's having. He scored, obviously, the winner against Leeds. So no, I just love what he's doing for us at the moment. And yeah, the runs he's making and being decisive, like the run he made into the box and sort of finding that space against Leeds. And as I say, that proved the difference. So, no, I'm really enjoying him. And obviously he's got other assets that he don't even sometimes rely upon, like his long throw in. He was quite, well known for that at Bournemouth. I know in his last game, can't remember who it was against where he scored that winner and it was quite fairy tale-like. He was using a long throw in that game and it was, yeah, just a really useful threat. We haven't even used that. City perhaps aren't a team, to rely on that late on, but yeah, that's something we can even use. So, no, I think he's a great player and someone who's really going to help us this season and beyond.
Yeah, as you say, he's pace, power, running power,
Yeah.
physical, clinical. Probably the best all-round forward that you can get.
Yeah.
He done it at Bournemouth. You could see that he was doing very well at Bournemouth. One of their best players, if not their best player.
Yeah.
The question was, can he translate that to City? And he's more than done that. Arguably, in my opinion, he is your best player in terms of an overall player. What he's done already. Sure, he's only been there for a few months, but not many players have an impact like he has immediately when they join one of, if not the biggest clubs in the league.
Yeah, no, it's true. And especially now that, again, we're talking about Haaland's goal drought obviously being that focal point and someone who a lot of City fans, say is our most important player. Actually, as you say, when Semenyo has now come in, he's now almost taken that mantle of being that goal scorer and that threat. But I still think there are ways that he can improve. Like when I watch his overall game, sometimes he loses the ball, and obviously sometimes having quite a powerful and sort of strong physique can play against you because you can sometimes be quite like, I don't know what the word is, like bumbly with the ball, sort of where you're on your feet and you can lose it. And sometimes I see that from Semenyo, and just how fast-paced games are. Sometimes you can run into traffic or, just not play the ball quick enough, or you're sort of forced into a rush pass. But every player can improve upon that. So, no, for me, the impact he's making is great, and the goals and assists will put him on this pedestal of how quickly he's managed to do it for City. But also, as I say, his overall game can definitely improve, and if that improves, he can do even more than potentially win player of the season, which is scary and very exciting because I think he deserved a move to a club where, he's going to hopefully shine on the Champions League stage as well for us in the latter rounds because he hasn't got the chance to do that yet. I know he couldn't play in the playoffs if we got there, I don't think, or we obviously hadn't got there. But in terms of if we did, I didn't know how that would work. But for the round of 16 tie, he could be integral really to trying to defeat Real Madrid. So no, it's exciting times, I think, and he's just taken to it so well. So playing on all 4 fronts, playing for titles, I think he's just really enjoying it.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's interesting, your point about him being not clunky, but a bit fumbly with the ball.
Sometimes.
I think that's a massive City perspective in terms of being that perfectionist club, in terms of Pep loves being perfectionist. I think the way Semenyo uses the ball, runs with the ball, yes, he might give it away. I think that's a big part of the game that makes him what he is. You need a player like that. He's unpredictable. Yes, okay, he might lose it, but high risk, high reward, which is why he's been so good.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think when he gets into the right areas in terms of taking on players on the flank, there's no question in my mind that he's not bumbly. He tends to beat his man pretty much every time in the balls he's putting in, and also when he plays more central, like against Leeds, where he scored that goal in the box. I think he's got all of that. Like, that's how he makes the impact. He's clinical when he needs to be. I just mean like maybe in and around the centre circle when he's sort of trying to get on the ball a bit deeper and it's quite congested, he can lose the ball, which all players do. That was just something that I sort of picked out, maybe as a perfectionist myself, in terms of just different things that he can improve on. We know under Pep, which seems like he may be leaving at the end of the season, but at least until the end of this season, we know Pep's style is never to lose the ball. So maybe that's just another part of me just picking up on that and being like, oh no, we don't want to lose it. But as you say, it does make him unpredictable, and he certainly is. When he gets 1v1, I always back him to win those. It's just maybe higher or lower down the pitch, you'd say, where he could improve. But no, in general, I don't think you can really complain at how Semenyo's done. The fans already love him. I know we've got a song to the song, I think it's Just the Way You Are by Milky, I think is the band or something. I wouldn't quote me on the band, but I know the song is called Just the Way You Are, and we've got a song about him. And yeah, so there's lots of songs going about, which is nice, because I think, you know, some players can be at the club for a while and fans don't necessarily ever take to them. I mean, everyone loves Phil Foden, but he hasn't even got a song, so I think you can really see the impact Semenyo's made, that immediately fans want to sing about him, and yeah, just love what he's managed to do for us already.
Yeah, for sure. Next is a player in fourth with 11 goals, who I think could have been the top scorer in the league if he was treated not as harshly when a certain Swedish striker come into the club as well for a record fee. Obviously, this is Hugo Ekitike. 11 goals, as I say, 4 assists, 25 games, 0.59 goals per 90, 153 minutes per goal, and an 18% goal conversion rate. He started the season absolutely on fire. I said to you, this man is the best striker in the league at that point. I don't think that was radical to say, because he was performing, scoring, leaking up the play, running, holding the ball up, looked absolutely fantastic. Then obviously Alexander Isak come to Liverpool, and he pretty much immediately got dropped to the bench, which I thought was really, really unfair, because he was dragging them to quite a lot of wins early on. As a player, I think he's fantastic. Liverpool fans love him, and I would not be surprised to see him double this tally next season.
Yeah, I mean, you've literally covered everything in terms of his attributes there. It is incredible how he is, and I think when you say he's probably the most well-rounded, I don't know, goal scorer in the league, I definitely think so, sort of the attributes he has. Like, he's very different, like, he's quite agile, I'd say. Like, we talk about the strength that players have. I think he's quite agile and very fast, which, yeah, I love to see when Liverpool play counter-attacking football, like against, I think it was Newcastle was a particular game I watched, and he was just scintillating on the counter because he's just so quick, but also the finishes he does, like, that's why I think you're saying next year if he plays more he can just double almost his goal tally this season, because he just has so many attributes. Like, his finishing was insane that game. So no, he's really enjoyable to watch, even as sort of a rival fan. You just look at how good he is, and it's exciting to see. So yeah, there's not much else I can say. He's got great dribbling, as we say, the technical ability in terms of being agile, is just incredible, and 5 assists as well, so it shows he can kind of link up play and he's starting to build those connections. And I think that's really helped, really, in the absence of Isak, that he's managed to get a bit of a run and just really prove what, like you noticed early on, is that he should be the starting striker. And I think it's just going to make it really difficult, surely, for Isak to come in, because I don't think Liverpool will want to play the both of them. So no, it's going to be stern competition, because Ekitike is just incredible to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Still only 23 years old. Still a little bit raw. Has a bit to improve. That 18% goal conversion. He could be a little bit more clinical for sure. His heading hasn't been great. Has got a 50p header points this season, which is something that a player for his height and his physique should be doing slightly better at. But overall, for a young player coming into the league in their first season, which is the point we'll cover massively with Gyokeres and Sesko, 11 goals is fantastic. We compare that to Haaland. I mean, as we say, freak of nature, hard to compare. But 11 goals in your first season in the Prem is a fantastic return, and you couldn't really ask much more. He'll probably get to about 15. 4 goals in 10 games, I think, is very, very likely. So at least 15. You look at that and you say, yeah, that's a very good return for your first season.
You know, it really is. I think most strikers, I mean, you can quote me on this, but I think like most have a good season if they get about 10. But for Ekitike at Liverpool, obviously not playing all of the games, that if he gets about 15, that would be great. And as we say, the assists as well, he's just contributing in so many different ways. And yeah, as you say, if he now in his second season is even more used to the league and sort of his opponents, he'll only further improve. So he's an exciting prospect, I think, for Liverpool if they start to sort of find some momentum. And yeah, next season, you just don't know Liverpool how they could improve. And Ekitike will be definitely at the forefront of that.
Yeah, for sure. Next on the list, also practically the same stats: 11 goals, 4 assists, 28 played, 0.48 goals per 90, 188 minutes per goal, 21% goal conversion percentage. Another new signing for a Big Six club, and that is João Pedro. I mean, as a Brighton fan, slightly annoyed me with how he ended the season. It kind of looked like he was giving up. Maybe slightly harsh to say, but we all knew what he could do. He's gone to Chelsea. He's done it. Been fantastic. Won them games. Won them big points. Scored some big goals, and a lot of the time, been one of, if not their best players on the pitch. And he's got that Brazilian flair as well, which you love. Probably the only different striker in this list. I think he's slightly better as a 10, more agile, more creative with the ball. But if you look at that, getting 11 goals is very impressive if he is being that slightly deeper player.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I was researching about Pedro and sort of how he's changed his role under Rafinha, and I think it's more so that he's playing as a sole sort of striker rather than in the 10 that he did under Maresca, because they're saying like he's now having more shots per game and more touches in the box, and all these sorts of things that he's now developing by just focusing on being in and around the box, almost between the posts, has kind of helped him to, I don't know, just be more of a threat and have more opportunities, which is definitely helping him to get those 11 goals. And if we're talking about how at Brighton, I think he was your penalty taker, right? He scored, I don't know how many penalties it was last season. I want to say 9, but I don't think that's correct.
10 goals
5.
in
So 5. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So like around half being penalties, and now obviously at Chelsea, he's kind of lost those penalty privileges, but is still scoring 11 goals is really impressive for his first season, and he's arguably keeping Delap out of that striker role. So again, that's another impressive part to his game that, you know, Delap is more, I'd say, a substitute, or at least he was in the games that I've sort of seen. So no, I think he's just maximising his threat under Rafinha, and I know Rafinha's a really big fan of him. I think he said he could be the best player, one of the best players in the world, or one of the best strikers. He really does pip him to develop under him, which is exactly what he's doing. I mean, I've noticed his pressing is more intense, his attacking movements. I think he's really developed his game. So no, I've been impressed. And I think, like you said, when he left Brighton, I think you predicted him to do really well for Chelsea, because obviously they're a team who've got lots of different players who can contribute in those forward areas, but also, yeah, just becoming that sole striker, I think, has helped him to improve even more. But yeah, there's not much else to say, I think, upon him. One key game that I thought really showed how good he was, I thought, was in the League Cup game that they played at the Emirates against Arsenal. Didn't manage to score in that game, and obviously Arsenal won the tie in the end in the semi-finals. But he was dragging Gabriel and Saliba out of position and just showed really impressive strength, like holding up the ball. He was running the channels. Won, I think it was twice as many fouls as any other player. So just really helping Chelsea in that game to be an attacking threat. And that really, I think, summarised everything he's managed to develop under Rafinha at Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, the Napoli Champions League game dragged them through there on his own pretty much. He's clutch.
Yep.
He works really hard, and along with Caicedo, will probably go down as one of the best players to ever play for Brighton. So he's done fantastic, and another one who shouldn't really be a surprise that he's on this list. He cost £60 million, which is an absolute bargain for a player of his quality. And what you've just said about him playing up front more under Rafinha being that lone striker is even more impressive, that he was quite poor as the number 9 at Brighton, much better in the 10. He's developed that, he's learned, and again, he's another that could easily double this tally next season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're talking about Pedro still, yeah?
Yes.
Not sure if we were moving on to another player, but yeah, no, for sure, as you say, him kind of moving from that 10 to the striker role is impressive to kind of develop. And yeah, I think we've sort of covered everything in terms of his attributes and what he's managed to do. So no, it's really exciting. And again, as we talk about Delap, it just shows again that he's keeping a player who they signed as well to be an impact, keeping him out of that starting position. So no, all credit to Pedro. And he could also take the penalties. Obviously, he doesn't at Chelsea either. So no, it's impressive what he's added to the side.
Yeah. Next in joint 6th with 10 goals, 1 assist, 25 games played, 0.49 goals per 90, 185 minutes per goal, and a 19% goal conversion rate. Signed for Leeds, newly promoted, has probably been another big surprise this season, kept himself fit, and that is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. An England call-up could be on the cards.
Yeah, I literally had this in my notes. I was like, England is something he's spoken about recently, wanting to be part of the squad, and I think we can't look past him with how he's doing at Leeds. You know, a team who I think people were unsure if they'd managed to stay up, but at the moment it seems like they might just about manage to. And he's been integral to that, and even integral, I'd say, in keeping Daniel Farke's job. I know the club were considering, I think, sacking him prior to the November sort of international break around then, because they were in a really bad spot. But then Dominic Calvert-Lewin was one of those key players who started to score and really helped them in big games. I know he scored late on against Manchester City at the Etihad, scored when they beat Chelsea, I think it was the game after. And yeah, I just think he's been a great player for them. And as you say, I think keeping him fit will be really important, not only for Leeds, but also for obviously his England chances as well. But yeah, I just think he's been great. And as we say, he's sort of a player who I've seen in past games can be clinical, can be really exciting, but kind of been hampered, I think, by injuries at times and just sort of lost form as well. But yeah, he's started to really find his form at a key time as well for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say single-handedly kept Leeds up because a lot of the players have performed very, very well, but he's been a
Yeah,
huge part in keeping them in the Premier League. I mean, there is a chance they still go down, but I don't see it. I think they've got more than
no,
enough to stay up and then grow next season to be a stable mid-table club, and then who knows in the next 3, 4, 5 years climb back into a European sport and get back to being one of the best clubs in the Premier League. The only criticism I think I have, and some Leeds fans as well, is that 19% goal conversion rate. I think the City game is a prime example. He had a couple of opportunities. Leeds could have been 2-0 up in the first 20, 25 minutes if he stuck those away. Kind of nitpicking because he still scored 10 goals and there's still 10 games to play, but just a little bit more and Leeds could have climbed with how tight it is to be fighting for European football. But for a player that's been out injured for the last few seasons, I can't really criticise him too heavily because it's a fantastic return and he should be on the plane.
yeah, no, agreed. There's not much, as you say, to add to that, but no, it's just clinical. It's time of being more clinical, and that'll come, as you say, hopefully, if he manages to avoid those injuries. But yeah, he had some great chances against Manchester City on, I think it was yesterday, wasn't it? Sunday. So no, he's a great player, and just yeah, maybe sometimes needs to anticipate more when the balls came into the box. He was slightly behind and just missed, but you'd expect him in the form he's in to score those. So yeah, no, it's exciting, and I think, as we say, if we keep him fit, Lucas Lemaitre, I think, has got around 5, 6 goals as well. In that sort of 3-5-2, I think they play at times. Those two up front, keep them fit. I think they should stay up, like you've been saying. And yeah, I think he definitely deserves to be on that plane for the World Cup if it does obviously go ahead.
Yeah. Another player who could also be on the plane for the World Cup is kind of Calvert-Lewin is kind of having a similar career path to this player. 10 goals, no assists, 27 games, 0.55 goals per 90, 163 minutes per goal, 26% goal conversion rate, which is the second best on this list so far. That is, of course, Danny, that guy, Welbeck. Has been fantastic this season. Started the season really, really well. Dropped off a little bit. I criticised him quite heavily. I think his movement was beginning to be really, really poor. Not going to say he was lazy, but the press wasn't quite there. That is the age, of course. He had to play loads and loads of games through the winter period because Jimas got injured. Babis Kostelas, you can't just throw him in and play loads of games because he's young. But he scored some massive goals against Newcastle, Brentford, Forest, and you have to say been one of our best players this season. Scored 10 plus goals in back-to-back seasons. The second player to do it or the first player to do it since Jamie Vardy, 33 plus years old, since the 2020, 22 season, and only Brighton's second ever player to score 10 plus goals consecutively in the Premier League after Glenn Murray. Should sign another contract. Whether he's the starting striker next season, who knows, but he should absolutely be in the squad, and we'll see how he goes the rest of the season and into next season. But his career path, he's just grown as he's got older. Last season, Duncan Hurstler said it's the fittest, the best he's ever been. This season, they're saying he's even better. So I've criticised him a lot for things, but he's been fantastic, and I take back what I've said. Sometimes, because of his age, I understand why some pressing moments haven't been quite as intense. And you've got to keep him fit as well. He's had so many injuries that sometimes he can't be going too much because then you risk an injury, and then, yeah. But 10 goals for Brighton, signing for free. He needs 1 goal to score 50 Brighton goals as well.
Oh wow, and you'll definitely back him to do that, I'm sure. Because, like as you say, sometimes when I know that you've criticised him, it's also like then he just pops up with a goal. So as you say, kind of in his age, he's still being that player you can sort of rely upon to get double figures, which is really impressive. And as you say, some of those stats there, he's one of the few players of his age to be scoring, 10+ goals in consecutive seasons. So no, I think it's great, and I know you can probably talk more on him, and as you have kind of outlined what he gives, but no, from what I've seen, just his heading, his shooting, I just think he contributes goals when you need them. And yeah, it's just so experienced. And I'm sure the Brighton players will say as well that he kind of adds that air of maturity and experience and leadership that you kind of need as well. And he just sounds like a lovely guy too. So no, in general, I think it's nice to see him doing so well. And I know if we're going back to that England call up as well, that he'll definitely want to be there, and definitely can kind of be that strong and wiser head on old shoulders, as that phrase goes, for some of the younger players.
Yeah, I mean, he's like a fine wine, isn't he?
Yeah.
Premier League goal scorer coming up to that. Was it Pascal? Is Welbeck overtaken? I actually don't know if Welbeck's overtaken. I think he has
Yeah.
with the goals that he's scored. But, I mean, if you go into a World Cup with Harry Kane, Calvert-Lewin and Danny Welbeck as your 3 strikers, with the form they're on, I mean, you've given yourself a chance of doing well.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's it. It's 3 exciting strikers. I just, as I say, hope the tournament goes ahead and those 3 do get picked, because, yeah, they've got different attributes, and I'd say Welbeck is kind of the most experienced, or at least the most senior of them all. So, no, I'm looking forward to seeing if he does get picked. But I'm sure if he continues this way, and as you say, that 50 goal mark coming up as well, will definitely only help him, because that'll be sort of written across the headlines. So no, it's exciting times for him, and hopefully with Brighton, I know you're saying after this win against Forest, hopefully you can push even higher up the table, because it is so tight. With some of his goals, maybe it can help you toward those higher spots as well.
Yeah, I mean, could break that record against Arsenal, get to his 50 goals. That would be quite a story. But yeah, he's been fantastic. He's a Brighton legend for sure. One of, if not the best strikers in this modern era for the club. Gleb Murray in there as well. And as you say, he helps the young players. Have a Jimas and a Babis having a Welbeck is probably the best you can ask for, really, in terms of someone to learn off of and work off of.
Yeah, very true.
But the next player in this list is kind of what inspired this episode, because we both have very differing opinions on him. I think with this goal stat, I think I might win this one with my argument. But, of course, it is Victor Gyokeres, former Brighton player. 10 goals, no assists, 27 games played, 0.5 goals per 90, 181 minutes per goal, and a 24% goal conversion rate. I think that is perfectly acceptable for 28 games into your first proper Premier League season. I know he's played in England before. He was very young at Brighton, didn't play in the Prem, played a couple of times in the Cup, played in the Championship with Coventry. Very different though, as we've discussed before this pod. And if you've watched Erling Haaland's video with the Sidemen, he discussed the difference between the Championship and the Premier League. Big difference. Yes, I understand he cost a lot of money, but 10 goals in your first season, I think that's more than acceptable. And he could get even more.
We've had this discussion, and I do think the stats definitely speak to him doing what he needed to do for Arsenal. They were crying out for sort of a focal point in attack. And yeah, obviously it was a debate between them getting Sesko or Gyokeres. So he's come in where, a lot of fans might have wanted Sesko. I know most were happy with Gyokeres, but there's always that pressure when you were sort of being talked about, picked against another player in the transfer window, to come in and kind of prove that you were the deserved choice. And he has, I think, proved that. I just say it's more about kind of, you have the eye test and you have the stats. So for me, it's like he's doing what he has to do. And I think the North London derby did really impress me, actually, watching him sort of with the finishes he did, with the movements he was making, and just how decisive he was. I know with the last goal that he scored to make it 4, I think it was 4-2 that game, wasn't it? He just literally burst in behind sort of the back line and finished it calmly. So that really all impressed me. But as I say, I think the criticism, among other fans, I don't know about Arsenal fans, is that maybe he's not the easiest on the eye, sort of when he runs and that. I know you might have a differing opinion, but he's not, I don't know, it's not that he's not fast, he's just quite, I don't know if bumbly is the word again that I'll sort of bring up. But again, I think that's just his style of play, but he's still getting the goals that he needs to. Obviously, he hasn't got any assists, but I'm sure with time he might even add that to his game. But yeah, no, for me, I think, especially because I think Arsenal fans have sometimes said he's not getting the service as well, which hasn't helped. I think if he gets 15 goals with a criticism of them not supplying him enough, that's perfectly enough. And I think he's doing the job that Arsenal need. And obviously in the latter rounds of these competitions, if he can turn up like he is, because he's starting to get a bit of form, then I'll be really impressed. But as I say, it's just the easy on the eye comment, which I think is fair to make. But I don't know what you think of that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure he's not the easiest on the eye, but Arsenal didn't
Yeah,
need that. They have so many pretty players. They needed someone that's just going to be a bully, get in the box and put the ball in the back of the net. Because that's probably
yeah,
the reason they haven't won the league the last season or two. It needs someone that's
yeah,
just going to be a big man up front and put the ball in the back of the net. Because he has won them games, that is for sure. You can't argue that. He scored some
yes,
big goals, and I'm fairly certain he will score some big goals for the rest of the season, whether that's in the league, the cups, the Champions League, I have no doubt. And he could, again, be the difference between Arsenal winning nothing and maybe even the quad.
yeah. I don't know about the quad. I mean, this will be for another pod. I don't think the quad will happen. I could be eating my words at the end of May, but that's just my own prediction. But no, in general, I do think he will be important for them. He has to be. You know, he is now that focal point that they brought in. With Saka maybe not so much in form, and obviously everyone called him their star boy, sort of their key player. It's good that Gyokeres is now kind of taken that mantle over for them. But yeah, no, I think he's definitely doing what he needs to. As you say, he's kind of that physical character that they needed, that player who can finish the chances, which they did miss in those other title races. It's just about getting it over the line. And, you know, if they do, it'll be all hail Gyokeres and obviously the rest of the team because it's not just him. Otherwise, I don't know how the media will sort of take it, but of course, that's just a fickle nature. One minute, Gyokeres is being hailed for sort of what he's doing, and then the next, it might be that it wasn't enough. But yeah, I think for Arsenal's hopes and the fans' hopes, they'll pray that it is enough and that they do get it over the line because they've now got that striker, as you say, that they needed.
Yeah, I think a lot of his criticism has been because of how many goals he scored in Portugal, but you have to take that
Mm,
with a pinch of salt because the difference in the league quality is quite big. The
yeah,
Portuguese league is a very good league. Anyone that's Portuguese watching this supports team in Portugal. Don't get me wrong, it's a very very good league. I visited the grounds; it's fantastic, but there's still quite a big gap between Portugal and the Premier League. So it looks rubbish in terms of if you look directly from this season to this season, but he'll get 10 to 15. More than happy with that. Next season, you look at it and think, right, okay, now you need 20 plus, which I think he can
yeah.
easily do once again. But that's a conversation for next season. But overall, I think he's been really, really good. And anyone who has a striker like that in their team has given themselves a good chance of winning something.
Yeah, no, for sure, and especially because of what he's doing. As you say, you can't really compare to Holland. He's just a freak of nature. So in a title race, what Gyökeres is doing, I think that's, as you say, enough. And we're yet to see if it will prove to get them over the line. But no, he's certainly one who has, yeah, just turned up and done what he needs to. And as we say, it's a conversation for next season how many goals he gets. But you know, if we were to predict it early, we'd say, yeah, he's definitely going to build upon probably the 15 or so goals he'll get this season in the Premier League. And then, as we say, other competitions as well, we can then add to his tally as well because they're still competing on all four fronts.
Yeah, for sure. But the final player in this list, you've already mentioned him, but I think he deserves a mention because he's got 8 goals, he's got 1 assist, he's only played 23, which I believe is the least out of these players. He's right down in joint 12th, but I think that also comes down to how poor the managers and the team was before their recent run. 0.6 goals per 90, very, very good. 151 minutes per goal and a 16% goal conversion rate. That's something that definitely needs to be improved. But it is Benjamin Sesko, who under Michael Carrick recently has been really, really good. And arguably this year has been the best striker in the league. The stats say I think he's got the most goals of any striker in 2026. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is what the stat is. So yeah, I think he's been really good as well. And another who come in for 60, 70 million pounds, but if he gets that 10 plus goal, mark that ratio, I think he's again another one that's done perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's really making the impact. And I think most of the games he's come on as a sub, but the most recent game, United fans were crying out for him to play. And he did against Palace. And of course, he scored that winner. So, no, I think he's been, as you say, really good turn of the year. 4 goals in his last 5 games. So I think that is definitely right, your stat about him scoring the most since the turn of the year. But no, I think he's proving sort of, as you say, that price tag, or at least starting to show what people thought they were going to get when he joined United. And as I mentioned when we were talking about Gyökeres, he was in the transfer market being talked about as potentially joining Arsenal. So no, he was a big name and one of the most exciting strikers at that time. And at least he's now starting to deliver more and being that sort of impact late on. And yeah, no, from what I've seen of him, he's got physicality, he's super fast. I think he's sort of got that kind of combined nature. Because when I look at him, I sort of think he does look agile, but he's also very tall, which is obviously what kind of helps him to get into the air and score those headers, which he's been doing. And I thought that header was great against Palace yesterday with the cross that Bruno put in late. And I mean, it was pinpoint from Bruno, which you expect nothing less from a midfielder of his quality, but you still had to finish it. And I thought it was very impressive. So no, I think watching Sesko recently, if you just take the games that he's made that impact most recently, it's only good signs, and I think he's going to contribute more and more to United as they carry on this Michael Carrick era, where they've obviously had 6 wins in their 7 games under him. They haven't lost yet, so no, it's all boding well for them. And as you say, I think it's been hard for Sesko prior to that because they were playing under Amorim, where maybe things weren't sure, round pegs, square holes, all of that sort of narrative. But it seems like they've been revitalised, and Sesko's been at the forefront of that for United in sort of their late title charge, or at least, that sort of European fight, which I'm pretty sure they will get Champions League.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's all if buts and maybes, but if Carrick was there from the start of the season, I think we can safely say he'd probably be near that 15 mark already, and he'd be right up there in the list in at least the top 5.
Yeah, no, it's true. And actually, if you look at it like that, that is very impressive, for a player who people have had their concerns over because he wasn't getting the goals. But now 8 doesn't sound so bad. And as we say, those 4 in his last 5 games. So, yeah, perhaps if Carrick could come in earlier, but we can only live in the present. And right now, United are doing very well. I don't think, as some people are saying, it might be a title charge. I don't think that will be able to happen because I don't see Arsenal dropping that. I think it's like 10 points it would have to be. But at least with where they are right now, it's an impressive turnaround, 3rd in the table, very much in the spots for Champions League. So, no, I think it's going really well for Sesko. And as you say, it could have been even better maybe had it not been Amorim in charge at the beginning of the campaign.
Yeah, for sure. I think his heading ability as well, as you say, is probably one of, if not the best in the league. His jumping ability helps that massively. Put the ball in the box to him, he's going to make something happen. More often than not, he's probably going to score, which in this day and age, no one really crosses the ball anymore. So that is a big, big advantage that United will have the rest of the season and going into next season.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, as a City fan, I sort of feel like the crosses that we put in kind of get wasted. So it is really good when you can have an asset, like you say, of a Sesko who can jump and just make something happen in the box. So yeah, no, he's someone who's come in clutch a lot. I know I always check my phone, or it feels like every time I do at the moment, he's scored another goal. So yeah, he's definitely coming in clutch for them. And the more game time he gets, probably the more goals and the more impact he'll have over those games as well.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't got the nickname Air Sesko for no reason.
I didn't even know that was his nickname, but that is very apt.
I've seen that all over. But we'll end with a striker that is also in joint 12th. That is Mateta. We're just going to add him in here because he's got 8 goals. Last season he scored a lot more, and he was kind of that benchmark of one of the better strikers in the league. But he hasn't been criticised that much this season by neutral fans. By Palace fans, he has been criticised a lot. He's missed loads and loads of chances. 8 is okay. Should be scoring more, in my opinion. Yes, he's needed knee surgery for sure. That comes into it as well. Tried to force that move away from the club in January. So if you're looking at him last season to this season, I don't think Sesko, Gyokeres and so on have had bad seasons at all and deserve anywhere near the criticism that they have had. But that is kind of just a little point there to prove that they've been good.
Yeah, no, certainly, as you say, the players have been good, and sort of I think it's just the expectations we have of players to come in and make that immediate impact. But no, they're getting the stats that they need to, and even with Jean-Philippe Mateta, I think, if he's wanting a move away, at least you say 8 goals I think he's got will still kind of bode well for him in getting that move. But it has been, as you say, sort of an injury time where he had to have the knee surgery. So I haven't really heard much of him. I know Palace fans maybe have criticised him, and I myself might slightly, just because I don't really notice he's scoring as much as he did last season. It felt like he was always on the scoreboard for Palace. Maybe that's more a feeling than a fact for me. But yeah, this season, at least he's still got those 8 goals. But yeah, I'm not sure where his move is next, but he's still kind of there for Palace doing the business up front.
Yeah, I mean, the move away looked guaranteed to happen in January, but medical reasons that fell through, which is a shame for Palace because I think they did want to move him on. He wanted that move. Last season scored 17 goals overall, 14 in the league, so he's 6 behind that. I mean, I think he's getting that knee surgery, which Palace aren't going to be too concerned about, I suppose, because they've got Strand Larsen, who I think has been quite good already since he's come in. Gesand as well has been very good. So I
Yeah.
don't know what his next move is, to be honest. He's 28 years old. He wants to get in that front squad, but I don't see any way back for him at Palace. Definitely not with the fans.
Yeah, no, that's true. I didn't know how much unrest there was there. That's me being uninformed. But yeah, if the fans are kind of unhappy with him, I mean, considering what he did for them last season, you're talking about those stats and obviously that FA Cup run, which was historic. So no, it's interesting how things have changed so quickly. But yeah, I imagine he'll move in the summer, sort of that aging profile, as you say, Gesand as well up front. But yeah, not sure where he'll move to. If you say that January move kind of fell through, then we're not sure.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he's at Palace or in the Premier League next season. But you
Yeah.
just never know. The final point I want to make here is that if you look at all the strikers we've just talked about, their profiles are quite similar in terms of being that big man up front, which we mentioned at the start of the episode, the revival of that target man. And I think more and more Premier League teams will do that in this summer transfer window. You will see quite a lot of big strikers. We could have a goal fest next season.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. Hopefully so. I mean, as you say, if Danny Welbeck signs that contract, he's sort of aging like a fine wine, and then you've got the likes of Gyokeres who's just coming into their own, Sesko as well. Yeah, obviously, Mbuemo we haven't really talked about, but he's another forward as well. You can sort of look at to hopefully excel more than he has already for United this season. And yeah, Igor Thiago is Brentford's key man. Yeah, it's exciting to see all these players who've got quite strong stats this season, and as you say, next season they'll probably even be in better stead. And obviously, if the players around them as well come in the summer, that'll only help these forwards more. So no, it's an exciting time with all these different players.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the only, I suppose, concerning thing you have to watch is it just a trend of this season, next season, it kind of dies off? Like the long
Mm,
throw, it might be, but I hope the
yeah.
big man comes back, the striker, because it's fun. It gets more goals, and it's just fun to watch. It's exciting to watch. Who doesn't want to see games end 5-4?
Yeah, well, my heart was in palpitations when it was 5-4 Fulham City. But no, those sorts of games are exciting, as you say. So the more goals and these more target mans, the better, you'd say, yeah.
Yeah, as long as there's a nice mix between target men and then slightly more agile strikers. I think personally
Yeah.
Brighton have quite a good mix of that with Welbeck, Giamas, Kostelas and Jorginho Rutter. I like the dynamic in there. The strikers we've been linked with, Micah and Bick, who I've done a video about he's 6 foot plus, big, strong target man, clinical, playing down in League Two for Colchester. Another player who's had to have a long term or sign of a mid term injury, knee problems. Promise David playing for USG, another tall striker, and Malik El Marla, Said El Marla's brother, another tall striker. We'll probably go in the 21s if he does join, but three profiles there of three big men who I assume quite a lot of Premier League's sides transfer list will be quite similar.
Yeah, no, that's true actually. As I know you've mentioned them, so yeah, no, it's an exciting time for bringing in, as you said, those strong players. But you also want those agile ones. I mean, Ekitike, I think, is quite agile, and he's been really excelling, and he's nice to watch, as I say, especially on that counter with the pace and, as I say, the agile abilities he has. So no, you want that mix, but it's definitely an exciting time. And as you say, it won't just be Brighton who've sort of got this transfer list of wanting the different types of profile strikers, because at the end of the day, that's how they score the goals. That's how they get the entertainment. So no, it's been enjoyable sort of discussing all these different strikers and how they've managed to do so far, a lot of them just in their first season in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, for sure. And we will come back at the end of the season. I'm sure we'll do another pod or two in between then. But we'll come back at the end of the season, react to our Premier League predictions. I'm already dreading that because I remember some of it were quite interesting. We'll obviously talk about the top scorers as well and go back through these strikers quickly. And yeah, but I think that is everything unless there's something else you want to add.
Don't think so at all. Just thank you for having me again. And as you say, I'm sure we'll do one in about a month's time as well.
Yeah, we will definitely. What topic that is, we don't know yet, but we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. But that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, do whatever you want with the video. Anything that makes it get more views. That is up to you. But you know the outro by now. Do it with me. Adios.
Adios.